Today's all about Southeast Asia on a budget, how you can save the most money. This is such a big topic. I watched all kinds of videos on this before I came out, but I don't feel like many of them had like really practical advice. Some of it felt like, oh, you can stay in dorms instead of like fancy hotels, and it's like, yeah. But I've kept so many notes the whole time that I now feel like I can give a pretty good idea of how to spend a reasonable amount while you're away. Before I begin, this is like an overarching tip for the whole thing, is to not be miserable. Before I left, I was warned by someone who had done a similar trip that they've seen so many miserable, depressed travellers who were trying to spend like 20% less to make the trip like 20% longer, and in doing so make it about 80% less fun. This sort of penny pinching only makes you more stressed while you're away. There are so many things to be stressed about in Southeast Asia, but having like a 20 quid day after you've just had a load of 10 quid days in a row is not really one of them. It's also important to remember that people living in developing countries rely on tourists for their income. I was definitely a miserable scrimper sometimes, but I tried to tip and donate where I could. Some people I felt treated me a bit like a bag of money, but like in their shoes I would have acted so much worse. Okay, tip number one, a very small one. Get a filter bottle, drink from the tap, save the planet. Tip number two, don't over prepare. A lot of spending happens before you even leave home. It can be tempting to do a big Amazon and mountain warehouse shop before you go. I know I certainly did. But hold off. Some of the things you could probably do fine without, and if not, you can buy them for cheaper in Asia. Tip number three, getting there cheap. I spent a lot of time looking at this, and the best deal I could find was Gatwick to Singapore. Okay, so Singapore's quite expensive, but it's great. I do recommend starting there. I used my 40-litre backpack as hand luggage, which means I didn't check a bag, and I saved about 25 quid doing that. I got the flight for £220 one way. If I'd had more foresight and we put more planning into the trip, you can actually get it from as low as £149 if you book way in advance. Tip number four, finding a place to stay for cheap. I became so particular and had such like a precise way of doing things. I made a whole video going through my process for finding somewhere to stay. But suffice to say, if you really just care about money, you can camp or you can couch surf. I found it better to stay in hostels because they give you so many facilities, as well as just a place to stay and a bathroom to use. They can book transport tickets for you, they'll do laundry for you, some of them will cook for you, they'll sell you beer and snacks, they can give you advice on where to go next, how to get around town, they can talk to taxi drivers for you, all sorts of things. If you're paying for somewhere and you just want the cheapest place, just go on Agoda or Hostelworld, sort by cheapest and like turn up. One major thing to check is if splitting private rooms for your group size will be cheaper than dorm beds. In a lot of cases it is, but I was travelling in a 3, so nowhere has like triple room, it's all doubles or twins. Number five, fan versus air conditioning rooms. So there'll be two prices when you're booking accommodation, a fan room or an air conditioning room. If you go fan every day, you'll probably save maybe like £1 or more every day, and that's great. Call me weak, but in the vast majority of places I could not have done without air conditioning. But you can save money sometimes. Check the climate of the city you're going to first, because in some random places it will actually be cool enough for you to sleep without air conditioning, and you can save a little bit of money. In Pai, Dalat and Ninh Bình, I was actually fine without air conditioning, as long as I coated myself in bug spray. Tip 6, souvenirs. I don't know who's buying all the junk that they sell at the side of the road, but someone is, because they keep selling it. People are spending so much money on just junk, like I can't even describe it, but if you've been to Southeast Asia, you know the sort of rubbish that they sell. Tip number 7, don't get scammed. So many people get hit for money in Southeast Asia and it's just lost. A lady in Bangkok nearly got us. She was really friendly, she spoke such good English, and she was telling us, oh, don't go there where you're planning to go. There's this big statue, Big Buddha. As soon as you hear Big Buddha, just like turn away. She was like, there's a big Buddha, you always have to pay to get in, but today's like some sort of Buddhist holiday, and if you go to a tuk-tuk with a yellow license plate, they'll take you there for free. And what do you know, a tuk-tuk with a yellow license plate turns up, right? It was kind of fishy all along, but we only actually turned her away and left because our mate needed a wee so badly that we like had to pretty much run away from her by the end of the conversation. Later I googled the tuk-tuk to Big Buddha scam, and best case scenario, you're forced to buy these suits that you don't want. Worst case scenario, you get mugged. Look up some common scams for every country that you're going to. For example, in Vietnam, I was hit twice by a gang of men trying to damage my shoes. I don't know how the scam works really, but basically someone will like cut something on your shoe and then someone else charges you for like sewing it back up. I don't know what was going on. The only thing I can say to not get scammed is to learn a firm no. It can also help if it's in the local language. No, no, no. The hand motion is good too. No. Same with like taxi drivers you want to get rid of. If you're like, I could get a taxi, but no, I'll walk. Then, you're in for a bad time. You need to be like, no! Tip number 8, eating for cheap. Get used to haggling straight away. Supermarkets don't exist, and the 7-Eleven doesn't sell any real food that will keep you alive. You'll need to use the fruit markets to stay healthy, and you'll need to haggle there to get a decent price. Start ridiculously low, come up a bit, turn your back, and 9 times out of 10 they just shout behind you like, hey, I'll do it. They need your money to survive, and if you push them down a little bit, you're probably getting a good price. Don't hurt them. If you're trying to eat for as cheap as possible, be prepared for repetition. Generally in a new city, we just found somewhere doing fried rice for less than a quid and just ate there like 2 meals a day. It's just what you have to do. I also like to flip through menus as I walk around the town. Most restaurants will have a menu outside. And when I say restaurants, if you're thinking in like Western terms, it's not like that. It would just be like someone's kitchen. They have like a bit of paper outside that you can read. If I see a good deal on one of those, I will pin it on my Google Maps and come back later. Especially useful if you're vegetarian. I made a whole video about tips for being vegetarian in Southeast Asia, but it works for if you're trying to get the best deal to save somewhere where you happen to come across a good menu while you're out during the day. Tip 9, reject adventure tours. Okay, some people love this sort of thing, and Southeast Asia just happens to be a cheap place to do it. Go ahead, knock yourself out. But for people like me, I just look at the big billboards of like loads of smiling white people wearing hard hats in canoes and in caves and ziplining, and I just think, I could do all this stuff back home. I choose not to. I'm gonna save that 30 quid and do something that's fun for me and not feel the pressure to be like, hey, I went to Thailand and I went bungee jumping. Like, I don't think that's part of an authentic travel experience for me. Tip number 10, day tours. So day tours vary massively. Your hostel will normally provide some, but I find that they're like filled with a load of extra things that you don't really care about. I went on some where there was like one thing in the middle of the day that was amazing, and then the rest, like I've literally forgotten about. Research the entry cost to places that you actually want to go, and look into how cheaply you can get a driver to do your own like day tour. One time in Ubud on Bali, we got a driver for like 100,000 rupiah, which is 5 quid for the whole day, taking us over Bali to attractions that we wanted to go to and things that we wanted to see. But like I said, some can be really well packaged and save you money on entrance and drivers and so on, and hassle of planning. Some can be really good, but see if you're getting a rough deal. Tip 11, and I ran out of fingers, money. So pretty much the worst thing you can do is go to the post office and pay commission for travel money before you go. You don't know how much you're going to need in each currency. You don't want to be carrying it around. You're obviously paying commission, you're getting a bad rate. What a lot of people do these days is use ATMs, and for that you need a good international card. I choose Monzo, not sponsored or anything. They have an app where you just top up the card and you can withdraw internationally for free. They have forums as well where previous travellers will say, I used this brand of ATM in Thailand and they charged me. Or they'll say, I used this brand of ATM in Thailand and it was free and it was good. That's a bad example. I don't think any ATMs in Thailand are free, but you get the gist. To save money on ATM fees, withdraw a little bit when you see an ATM brand that you know is free. Don't wait till you need the money, because then when you're in a pinch, you'll go to one where you have to pay. Be charitable to the people out there, not to the banks. Tip number 12 is don't be an idiot like me. Don't lose things. All day you'll be like checking out of hotels, packing up, unpacking. You'll be on a bus, you'll be on a plane, you'll be on a ferry. You'll be checking out the next day, you'll be moving rooms, you'll be moving hotels, you'll be moving cities. Just take care. Like I reckon I spent over 100 quid replacing things that I lost in Southeast Asia. I lost my glasses, I lost my towel, I lost my filter bottle, I lost all sorts of things that cost me a lot of money to replace. And tip number 14, see if you can get a SIM card before you leave home that will work at home and in other countries. So the card I usually have, I get 12 gigabytes of data a month to use in the UK, and it's the exact same in a certain amount of countries around the world. And on my trip I could use it in Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia and Australia. I didn't have to buy any SIM cards, I could use all my data just the same. If you can't use your SIM card, it's actually quite cheap to get one with a good amount of data, and I really do recommend it for using maps while you're out and about. Okay, so that's it. It basically comes down to awareness, foresight, planning, care, attention to detail, basic stuff. Get used to haggling for food quickly, get used to haggling for drivers quickly, and always ask your hostel if they do a bus to the next city, because the train can sometimes be quite expensive. I think that's it. I wrote this list for so long the other day. And I'll also include links to other talky videos I made about Southeast Asia. I hope this was helpful, but the main thing I wanted to share from this trip is a type of video that I feel like I haven't seen before, something emotional and meaningful, where I try to show like stories of travel where I like couldn't get the shot that I wanted, and I was like, times I let anxiety get the better of me, at times I lost my glasses, all sorts of cool, like good and bad things happening because I feel like without one you can't really have the other, if you know what I mean. So yeah, emotional videos where I go behind the like fakeness of a lot of like Instagram and YouTube travel content. I'll be editing those like as soon as I get back to the UK. I really can't wait. If you want to see those, subscribe or check out my channel. They might already be up. Please let me know what you think, because I've been like so eager to share these, and I feel like they're a bit unique and there's probably a space for that. And my video in Singapore, my first destination on the trip, oh, I can't remember what I said in that, but I believe it's going to be a video about being stressed in many, many, many ways. Anyway, I've been rambling for way too long. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.